A 10-year-old boy named Eric Cartman is tricked into buying pubic hair.
I didn't realize when I bought these pubes from you that you were full of shit.
When the teenager who scammed him refuses to pay up, Eric plots to get him back in the most brutal way possible. This is South Park. Scott Tenorman Must Die. This episode begins with Eric joyfully riding his bike to meet his friends, Kyle, Stan and Kenny, at the bus stop. When his friends ask why he's so happy, Eric brags about being the first of them to reach manhood, as he has just gotten his first pubic hairs.
I got pubes before you guys did. I got pubes before you guys.
At first his friends are jealous, but when Eric says that he bought the hair from a 9th grader named Scott Tenorman, his friends call him an idiot. They then explain to him that he's supposed to grow the hair himself, not buy them.
You're telling me these pubes are worth nothing? Yeah. I'm gonna get that son of a bitch.
Over at Scott's house, Scott is laughing with his friends, while telling them that he just conned a 10-year-old boy into purchasing his pubes for $10. Eric demands his money back, saying that he'll tell his mum if Scott doesn't do it. The teenagers threaten to beat him up, and so Eric walks away defeated. Shortly after, Eric shows up at Scott's front door, pretending to be a tax collector, clearly using the pubic hair as a disguise.
I'm here to collect $10 that you owe in back taxes.
Scott agrees to pay, but after trading their money back and forth, he ends up scamming Eric for an extra $6.12.
Ah, god damn it!
On their way to the movies, Eric vents to his friends, saying how mad he is about losing $16.12. His friends explain Scott's too smart for him and tell him to let it go. When they get to the theatre, Kyle, Stan and Kenny all pay for their tickets, but Eric, having lost all his money, tries to pay in pubic hair.
That'll be $6.
Okay, and how much is that in pubes?
After being denied entry, Eric angrily leaves and heads back to Scott's house to try get his money back once again. This time, Eric tells Scott that Courtney Love is in town, flashing everybody, and he'll look after Scott's house for $16.12. Scott's not interested, but insists on buying the pubic hairs back for $20, as he urgently wants them back. When Eric asks why he wants them back so bad, Scott explains that there's an annual pube fair going on in Fort Collins, where they'll pay $5 for each hair. Believing he's holding $1 million in pubes, Eric excitedly hops on a bus to Fort Collins. Upon his arrival, Eric asks where the pube fair is, as he has pubes for sale. The man calls him an idiot and walks away. A delivery man soon shows up with a package for Eric, and after unwrapping the box, Eric is shocked to find it jam-packed with even more pubes. After traveling 106 miles to get back home, Eric shows up at Scott's house completely exhausted. As a final attempt at getting back his money, Eric sadly tells Scott that his grandma is in hospital and needs life-saving surgery. Surgery which costs $16.12.
Hey, kid, hold on a second. I'll get your money.
He's such a douche.
Scott fetches his money, but first asks Eric to get down on his knees and beg for it, telling Eric to say, "I'm a little piggy, here's my snout. Oink oink oink, oink oink oink." After Eric's performance, instead of handing the money over, Scott burns it. Humiliated and upset, Eric screams in defeat. The following day, Eric assembles his classmates and presents his plan for revenge. He plans on training a pony to bite off Scott's wiener. But there's no reward for helping Eric, so his classmates walk out and leave Eric to execute the plan by himself. Armed with a bag full of sausages, Eric tries to teach a pony to bite off Scott's wiener, but it's far more into licking and sucking the sausage instead of biting it off.
Not like that, pony!
Suddenly Jimbo and Ned show up, and they both assume Eric's trying to teach the pony to please himself. Eric explains it's for revenge against Scott, and they both say it's okay as long as Farmer Jenkins knows he's on the farm, as he shoots trespassers on sight. Because they're both keen hunters, Jimbo and Ned offer to help Eric find Scott's weakness, so they spy on Scott's family later that night. After finding out Scott's into the band Radiohead, and spying on Scott's mother undressing, Eric runs off to plot some more. Once again, Eric approaches Scott, this time telling him that everyone will be gathering in town to watch an interview with Radiohead. With everyone gathered around watching the big screen, they all watch an interview that Eric has clearly tampered with, making it seem like the band are insulting Scott. Scott walks off, but then returns with footage of Eric doing his begging piggy routine from before. Everyone laughs at Eric, as his plans for revenge have once again failed. Later that night, Eric stays up drawing up plans of what he believes is the best plan for revenge ever. The following day, Eric brings his friends to the farm and tells them about his new plan. He's going to once again try to get the pony to bite Scott's wiener off, but this time he'll do it in front of Radiohead to make it even worse. His friends think his plan is just as stupid as the last one's, so they leave Eric to training the pony by himself.
Ready, pony? Bat it! Yes!
Eric sends Radiohead a letter explaining that Scott has terminal cancer in his ass, and that it's his dying wish to meet Radiohead. The band members feel sorry for Scott and agree to come to South Park. Meanwhile, Eric's friends call Scott and warn him of Eric's plans to get a pony to bite his wiener off. The doorbell rings and it's Eric, handing out tickets to his Chili Con Carnival, and even a free coupon for a pony ride, which Scott agrees to go on. After Eric leaves, Scott tells his parents about a starving pony at Jenkins' ranch that's been abandoned. His parents head out to save the pony, and Scott and his friends start making chili that's loaded with pubes from almost every kid in town. Everyone gathers at Eric's Chili Con Carnival, with several contestants bringing their own chili.
Hello, Eric.
Hey, Chef.
I made some chili to enter into the contest.
When Scott arrives, Eric tries to take him to the pony for a ride, but Scott insists on eating the chili first before it gets cold. As they sit down to eat at the judging table, several audience members are seen smirking because most of them know about the pubic hair chili that Scott made. When Eric's halfway through his chili, Scott begins to tell him he's eating pubes, but Eric tells him he already knew of the pubes, so he swapped Scott's chili out with Chef's. He then explains that he also knew his friends would betray him by telling Scott about the pony, but what his friends didn't know is that Jenkins shoots trespassers on sight. And so when Eric warned Jenkins about violent pony killers in the area, Jenkins shot and killed Scott's parents when he saw them on his farm.
My mom and dad are dead?
Eric then stole their bodies, cut them up with a hacksaw, and then made them into chili. The very same chili that Scott has been eating.
Do you like it? Do you like it, Scott? I call it Mr. and Mrs. Tenorman chili.
After realizing his parents are dead and that he's just been eating them, Scott breaks down crying, right as Radiohead appear. They all call him a crybaby and say they're not going to perform for him because he's totally not cool.
I made you eat your parents.
As the tears run down Scott's face, Eric hops up beside him and licks them.
Your tears are so yummy and sweet.
The town and Eric's friends are all shocked that Eric went this far with his plan for revenge, and Kyle and Stan both agree to never mess with Eric again.
Oh, the tears of unfathomable sadness. Yummy.